Tone Deaf is the brand new film from director Richard Bates Jr., who brought us Excision and Trash Fire and Suburban Gothic. This film stars Robert Patrick, of course, the T-1000 from Terminator 2, and Amanda Crew, who I'm mostly familiar with because of her role in Final Destination Part 3, but I've seen her in plenty of other things as well. Just for some reason, that's the one I always go back to when I think of her. What this movie is about a young woman who is abruptly fired from her job and also loses her boyfriend. She takes her mother's advice to go away for the weekend, and she rents a house from a man played by Robert Patrick. And this guy is struggling with dementia and the death of his wife, and he's not quite right in the head. And while staying at his house, he comes and checks in on her from time to time without her knowledge. Richard Bates Jr. is a director that I really like. I think that he is a risky filmmaker that has he has his own style, and he goes for it, and sometimes it lands and sometimes it doesn't, and usually in the same movie. There's a lot of things in Excision that I love. There's some things I don't love. There's a lot of things in Trash Fire that I love, and there's some things I don't love. Same thing with Suburban Gothic. This one I feel like is his most uneven film. There are things that I liked in this movie, but I don't really know what he was going for here. I felt like this film was trying to be too clever, and it just wasn't landing. There's meta moments with Robert Patrick's character talking to the audience, of course, berating millennials, this get off my lawn approach that he has with his character. And then it's kind of flipped on its head towards the end, and I don't know. As I said, I felt like it was trying to be very edgy. The characters are written very trashy and foul-mouthed, and lots of ugly characters within the film. And they're trying to be realistic or, as I said, edgy. And a lot of it just feels very forced. And I put this mostly on the shoulders of the writer and the director, Richard Bates Jr. here. He's in control. He's, the captain of the ship here. He's the one who wrote the script, and he's the one giving the direction to the actors and the scenes. So this is, to me, it's a well-shot film. The acting from everyone is okay. It's fine. It's kind of what you would expect from if you've watched any of his other films. Annalyn McCord from Excision and Trash Fire does make an appearance here, but it's very short-lived. I would have liked to have seen more of her. In fact, I don't know if the film would have been better with her in the lead, because I think that, the actress that is in the lead here is good. She's fine. It's just everything feels very forced. As I said, this is a very uneven film for me, and unfortunately, where it's leaning more towards is dislike, just because I felt like it was very disjointed. I don't know if it knew exactly what it was going for. It got lost in its desire to push some kind of a message that was just kind of confused. He goes for the dream-like sequences, much like he did in Excision, where Robert Patrick is having these visions and these dreams, and it just feels like eccentric to be eccentric, weird to be weird. It doesn't feel like it has any pragmatic purpose to it. And that kind of befuddled me in the moment, where I was just like, what is his intention with these scenes? And what exactly is she trying to say with this? If we're just trying to make trashy characters and we're just trying to make edgy films, that's fine. But when you do sequences like that, when you have these meta moments where you're talking to the audience and you're pushing a message, then I would assume that you have a message to say with your film. And I just didn't get what it was here. So this is his most confusing film to me. But it's not a complete wash. It's not a complete throwaway film. I did like elements. There were some subplots going on, particularly one with a man that our main character meets up with here at a bar. I thought that was an interesting avenue to explore, and it just was kind of quick. And then there's something that happens at the end with Robert Patrick's son that I actually thought was going to play into the film later on, because it kind of set it up like that, but it never really does. And I didn't really understand what the purpose, because they also set up this whole, character. His character is suffering from the death of his wife, and they're exploring that a little bit. And also, I mean, the fucking title of the film is Tone Deaf, because our main character here is tone deaf, and she's shitty at piano, and no one will tell her how terrible she is. But it just, I don't see what the message is with any of it. When I was watching it, I was like, okay, but what is this saying? How is this relevant to the overall arching message of the film? It just seems like scenes that are strung together, ideas that are proposed and never capitalized on, never finished, never fleshed out, never imagined. And so it's a frustrating watch. And since I really like the director, but I can honestly say this is kind of him to me. This happens in every one of his films, just to varying degrees. I feel like there's a lot of success in Excision. I think that's his best film. And then as it goes from there, it's just kind of less and less successful, and this being his least successful film. And they do feel very similar. The characters are very similar in a sense. As I said, there's very trashy characters, and he likes to try to push the envelope, and it kind of falls flat on itself because it doesn't have any direction to it. So there you go. If you like Richard Bates stuff, if you're a fan of Trash Fire, Suburban Gothic, Excision, you might be let down like I was, but it's still an interesting watch just to kind of see what I'm talking about, and I'd be curious to hear what your guys' thoughts is. So let me know. Adios.